Let's focus on to this now. Pressure continues to mount on Miss South Africa Lalela Mswane to withdraw from participating at the Miss Universe contest in Israel. The South African government has said the Miss South Africa organization and Miss South Africa 2021 Lalela Mswane's insistence to continue with their participation shows that they don't appreciate the significance of such boycotts in fighting what they say is the oppression of Palestinian people.
Now, as South Africans, we know and understand the significance of cultural boycotts. We know the significance of taking a stand because of where we come from and the history of who we are as a people, as a nation. And these stands take to the collective pressure for systematic change. So some may contest that Miss South Africa or Miss Universe will continue with or without South Africa's participation. And as much as this may be true, however, it is not in our best interest as a nation, as the world, to submit to this type of event, especially knowing how oppressed the people of Palestine have been by Israel. It's not a good move, and we don't stand for it as a department, and we certainly don't stand for it as government.
In response, the Jewish board says Miss South Africa is being used as a political scapegoat. We're joined in studio by Zev Krengel, National Vice President of the Jewish Board of Deputies. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I think perhaps off the back of that bite that we just played from the Department of Arts and Cultures, Masachaba, your response?
So we're extremely disappointed. I mean, I think everyone's forgetting the main thing. We've got this unbelievable young woman who's done incredibly well to get to a position as Miss South Africa. It should be a unifying thing where we should all be supporting her, like we support the Bafana, we support the Springboks. We should be supporting Miss South Africa, which we do. And a certain minority group, this PS, Palestinian Solidarity, has decided to shift that focus. And very sadly, government and the ANC has chosen to capitulate to a small minority. Instead of this being building bridges, she's not going there as politics. She will have, she has the opportunity to represent South Africa on a world stage. It's not a massive boycott. It's not an apartheid concept. 70 countries are going. The Muslim world's going. The UAE's going. Morocco's going. Pakistan's going. South Africa's on the wrong side of history. Our disappointment as South African Jews, as South Africans, is that the government and the ANC are making her into a pawn on their cheap politics, where they're trying to appease a certain lobby groups. I hope South Africans stand by her, which they have, and I hope she stands by her commitment in the pageant. This is about a beauty pageant where she's got an unbelievable charge to represent us all on the world stage. And for me, that's where we're so disappointed. Is this should be a unifying contest for not only South Africa, for all of the world. And the South African government and the ANC have decided to make it a very divisive situation, which unfortunately is just going to harm not only her, but our reputation locally and internationally.
Right. So we did speak this morning, my colleague Michelle Craig speaking to Africa for Palestine, and this is what they had to say. I just want to get your thought after that, please.
In fact, in 1976, 9 contestants in the Miss World competition withdrew because they were objecting to the participation of South Africa apartheid in that pageant. So there's a long history of political involvement and political statements, in fact, being made through the pageants. A couple of years ago, in 2002, I believe, the Miss South Africa boycotted a pageant that was to be hosted in Nigeria over some political reason. Recently, Stephanie Well, who happens to be from the LGBTI community, made it possible for people who are not born female but who identify as female from the LGBTI community to participate in the Miss South Africa pageant. People have been told to withdraw because they've been found to have made racist comments. But now the owner of Miss South Africa, the owner of the organization and the trademark, Stephanie Well, and 9 Squared, the company that owns it, appears to be racist itself, or at least okay with the oppression of Palestinian people.
Bram Hanekom of Free Palestine, your thought? It's always been politicized, he says.
No, actually, he's totally incorrect. And first of all, to try and do the equation of, I mean, it's an insult to Israel and our intelligence. I do that there's even an equation. I mean, today, Israel's one of the most open countries. It's a democracy. It's made friends with almost all its neighbors. Its neighbors are going, we're on the wrong side of history. What saddens me is the ANC was always a party that realized the only way to get to the end of any conflict was actually negotiations. It was always negotiations, it was always understanding your enemy. And a certain lobby group is trying to get the ANC to do what they're not. They're not a conflict. They don't try and create. They shouldn't be around creating conflict. They should be creating bridges. But that they have turned on their own in this situation with the entire world. Well, I'm a little bit confused. Is the Israeli tennis team played in the Davis Cup in South Africa in 2018. Now, nothing's changed in Israel. Okay, you've got a more coalition government. I mean, for the first time in the history of Israel, you've actually got a Muslim party in the government of Israel. So Israel is incredibly inclusive to the Muslim Arabs of Israel itself. So 2018, they played the Davis Cup. Our baseball team played Israel. I mean, what I'm fascinated about, the president of FIFA, Infantini, went to Israel, and he's hoping that Israel will get the 2030 FIFA World Cup soccer. Now, will South Africa stop the Bafana Bafana playing in that? Will we be the only ones? Or are they just putting pressure because it's a single woman of a young age where they feel they can bully? Because I can't see them going for the Bafana Bafana team when it comes to FIFA. Israel is accepted throughout the countries of the world. Excluding Iran, there's not another country but ourselves that are on the wrong side of history. So we are working in a very dangerous space where we are trying to prolong a conflict instead of trying to bring that conflict closer to an end. And that's the sad part about it. And yes, we have come into the fray because the government isn't worried about the pageant. They're not worried about our unbelievable Miss South Africa, who should be on the world stage where we're all supporting. They're trying to be involved in a tiny little conflict that can be sorted out if everyone talks to each other. But they're the only ones choosing not to talk.
I want to get into that. So you talk about bringing the conflict to an end. How? I think maybe let's speak to the everyday South African who perhaps consumes, their news about Palestine or Israel from international media as well. So maybe we don't have a deeper appreciation of exactly what is going on.
So first of all, this isn't the time when there's a pageant to use her to have the discussion how to end the conflict. That's a simple way to end the conflict. South Africa has to stop sitting in the sideline and trying to think that Israel actually notices. I mean, when I met Naftali Bennett, who's now the Prime Minister, who's been to the White House and he's been to Moscow, I mean, he is on the world stage, unlike our own president. When I met him 4 years ago, he asked me, I don't know about South Africa, is Mandela still in charge? I'm saying that is the level. South Africa, I mean, Israel is an OECD country, it's 4% unemployment. It's doing naval exercises with the Bahrain, the UAE, and the American navies. Our navy can't even look after our own fishermen. I mean, that is the difference. So we are totally above our league. And instead of us doing what we're good at, bringing warring parties together, we have chosen only on this conflict, not on another conflict. We haven't chosen sides in Afghanistan. We have no issue with the fact that no woman can play soccer now in Afghanistan. They can't play any sport in Afghanistan. I mean, our Minister of Sport doesn't say a word about that. We don't make any mention what's happening in China, what's happening in what's happening in Ethiopia. We don't make a mention. We played Ethiopia soccer. We have no issue. There's a civil war going on. There's atrocities going on. Why is it only with the Jewish state that they find the voice, And they're on the wrong side of history. Look, South Africa, and especially the ANC, it's a dying party, it's trying to find relevance. And unfortunately, as time will go, they will realize they are more and more irrelevant, not only to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, they become more irrelevant in Africa. I mean, Israel's got back into the AU as observer status when South Africa shouted and screamed like having a little tantrum in the corner. Africa hasn't listened to them, and the South African people have stopped listening to them. So they are literally on this thing losing their respect at the UN, in the international stage, in the Africa stage, and even at home. They're becoming more and more irrelevant. And 2024 is around the corner, and you will see their behavior of obsessing about this one issue when it comes to the Jewish state and nothing else is actually going to come to haunt them as time goes on. They had their single biggest loss. And on a Sunday, when Bafana Bafana is playing their most important game to get to the FIFA World Cup, our Minister of Sports is trying to write a comment to stop our Miss South Africa to go to the Miss Universe pageant, which Miss Universe has chosen, and everyone's going. Everyone's going. So it's very sad. They're on such the wrong side of history, and they've literally been held hostage by a certain small group, of lobbyists, which don't even have any standing in the world stage.
And that's where we'll leave it. Thank you very much for your response. Zev Krengel is the National Vice President of the Jewish Board of Deputies.